Let's start off with an easy question. So, it's not.
I wonder where this is leading.
So, the show garnered a huge following right from the beginning because of your chemistry with Nicole and the relationship between those two characters, and for the diversity of the show's cast. So, as a well-off English man from England going to the States, what have you learned about the racial dynamics of Hollywood and media?
It's very interesting, and as you said, having a very diverse cast. When we started it was not only Nicole, there was Orlando and John Cho, and none of the characters were written, with the exception of Ichabod and Katrina because of their period context. None of the rest were written with any ethnicity in mind. It was purely they wanted to find the best actors for each of the parts, which I think is such a beautiful, perfect way of casting anything. I think it's terrible when you see this is the white actor, this is the black actor, this is the Mexican actor. It's not the right way to go about things. I did notice instantly in America particularly, when you have a woman of colour in the lead role, it's not just a woman of colour in the lead role. It immediately means so much more than that across the whole of America. It's someone who, there's a woman of colour in a position that not very long ago she wouldn't have been, and it comes to symbolise so much more. And so then when something like this happens, when they kill off said character, of course it's going to mean an awful lot more consequently. It's something that I haven't really noticed as much over here. Strangely, there are still lots of discussions over here about more opportunities for ethnic actors over here. But even so, the response to Abbie's death over there, it was a huge thing. I saw that there was even it got so far as there was an article in the Washington Post about it, because Abbie Mills represented more than just another character in the show. And I thought it was it wasn't an easy decision for them to make. I know that. I know the writers, they like writing Abbie Mills, and I like acting with Nicole. But it was a decision that had to be made. And I don't know the machinations of the politics behind it, but there you go. I've gone on, haven't
I? Speaking of Abbie's death,
yeah.
In many ways the character was kind of a safety net for Ichabod. She took care of taking all the modern conveniences and translating everything to him.
Yes.
How do you think Ichabod will deal with not having that anymore?
Well, that'll be the curious thing to find out. I always thought of Ichabod as the sidekick. Abbie has to be she's the one that the audience can relate to. So when you're entering into this insane world of Sleepy Hollow, you go with Abbie. She's been the guide, and Ichabod is this curious man in the periphery. Which also, I loved playing that. I think that was, it gave lots of opportunities to explore the character. I never really, funnily enough, was interested in Ichabod's backstory when we started the first season. I thought the less you know about him, probably the better. And that's how he can get away with all of his quirks, quite. And Abbie is the constant, smooth guide through that. That changed a lot in season 2 when they then did start to explore Ichabod's backstory and family and things. And so it'll be interesting to see where they go without that crutch, because I still think that Abbie was grounding that as well. So no, it'll be very curious to see whether they decide to find another way to ground Ichabod in reality, or whether they think that he has he's an inhabitant of the modern era enough that he can do it on his own. I don't know what they're planning, but I don't envy them having to make that decision.
How did you end up performing Bride Mary and Lock Hospital for the show? And can you tell us a bit about that?
Oh, yeah. A theatre company that I've been involved with for a long time called Simple 8. We were devising a show that they put out. I couldn't be a part of it, sadly, because of filming. A stage adaptation of Moby Dick that was on last year or the year before at the Arcola. And in the research and development period, we were exploring lots of sea shanties. And I became a little obsessed with sea shanties. I think they're remarkable. And so I had this huge compendium of sea shanties and songs from that era, and that was a real favourite of mine. This brilliant, beautiful, haunting ballad, and then you find out it's about a man who caught syphilis off a prostitute. And I thought that would be a fun thing to have Ichabod sing at karaoke.
Why not?
I like imagining him on the journey over, the 3-month boat journey over, with lots of big men with rickets and scurvy singing songs about prostitutes, and Ichabod being very proper.
Can you remember the exact moment you decided you wanted to act?
Oh, jeez. I'd been doing it a lot when I was a lad. I was encouraged to go into amateur dramatics. It kept me off the streets, I suppose. And then at one point during a performance, an actor came to watch and said afterwards, "You know, you can get paid for this." I was like, "Shut up, don't be ridiculous." And it turns out he was telling the truth. And that's when I first thought, so I must have been about 14. It was a production of Cider with Rosie, the Laurie Lee book. I can't remember who adapted it. And I was playing the young Laurie Lee. And my dad was in it, playing the old Laurie Lee. To amateur dramatics, it's like that. And yeah, then I suddenly thought, wow, if I can do this, then amazing. And I also watching Gene Wilder films when I was younger, I thought, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to be Gene Wilder. And then I started watching Alec Guinness films. I want to be Alec Guinness. And, you know, yeah. Probably that moment, though.
Okay.
So I was about 14.
So fans of Nicole, we've talked about this before, but the camera's on this time, so I don't have to secondhand share it with the fans. So fans of the Ichabod relationship would love to see you and Nicole work together again in the future. So do you have any dream projects that you would like to collaborate with her on in the future, or perhaps theatre?
I'd love to do a play with Nicole. I'd really like that. I'd like to do a play with lots of people. I'd like to do a play with John Noble. We were discussing that yesterday. Yeah, of course. I think we'd found a real rapport and found a very good, steady working relationship. And if we can go and explore something else with that, yeah, I'd gladly do it.
Because I had some messages fans were wanting to know if your friendship was fractured because of Abbie getting killed off the show. I said, I think you're being a little dramatic, but...
It's kind of them to inquire. My relationship with Nicole has not changed because of her death in the show.
I didn't think it did. They were very concerned.
Well, they can rest easy.
Is filming the new series, does it feel different filming the new series since the departure of Nicole?
I think we start in July. The writers go back in June and we start in July. But yes, it will definitely feel different. There were some episodes where we weren't really together very often, and just even with that, knowing that next week I'll be filming with her again, it feels different. The set feels different. So yes, it will be. It will be.
When did you know that Abbie was going to get killed off? Was it very early on, or?
No. I found out an episode or two before we shot it. I think the decision was made only an episode or two before we shot it. As I understand it, it was an idea that it was something that had been discussed a little bit. I don't think anyone really thought it would happen. And then the decision was made, very late on. I don't know what episode that would have been that we were shooting. I can't think. I'm looking at you because you seem to be the expert on everything that worries me.
Another Monster of the Week episode.
That's right. It was the one with the monster.
There you go. Has it been disruptive to have to recalibrate the style of the show and like your approach to playing the character because of the first season was one type of way, and then by the time it was the third season, it was basically a procedural Monster of the Week type of a show?
Has it been
like disruptive to your equilibrium of playing the character?
Oh, it's kept me on my toes. No, I wouldn't say it's been disruptive. Of course, there are avenues that you get really, really excited about, and then there are avenues that don't excite you quite so much. But that's the same with every job you do.
Do you have a preference for the more serialized mythology of the show versus Monster of the Week?
I'm a fan of the serialized, but I'm equally a fan of what my bosses decide. I think they're cleverer and know more than I do.
In terms of becoming your characters, do you just connect with him by putting on the costume, or do you find something to level with him and become actually some sort of connection?
At the very beginning, when I read the pilot, the thing that really struck me was how well he was written on the page. And there are, some scripts that you read and you think, okay, well, I understand this about the character, I need to discover this about them, and that's how you work your way in. And then there are some that just leap out at you instantly. And when I first read the pilot, he leapt out, and I heard his voice, and I saw it sounds very actor, wanky, but you instantly know this is how I'd like to do it. And then, of course, you get used to the character after doing it for 3 years. It definitely helps putting that on. It feels like a change. When you come in a t-shirt and jeans, and then suddenly you put those on, you immediately feel different, and it's a good way into the character. I remembered reading an interview with Ian McKellen when he was talking about Gandalf, and he said that, how do you approach that? He'd read the books, obviously, and read the scripts, and it's such a nuanced character. How do you begin? And he was really struggling with it, and then he went for a makeup test, and they put on a false nose, and he was like, I don't know. Then immediately they put on the nose that they used, and he said everything fell into place. And so it varies, sometimes you work from the inside out, and sometimes the outside in. Luckily with this, Len Wiseman and I seem to have very, very similar ideas from the pilot. So when he was creating the look, it really didn't differ from the idea that I had in my head, which is a relief.
So what was it like to play a character that adjusts to the modern time?
I mean, that's always been fun. That's for me, that's always been a real highlight of the show, which is why also I think, having Abbie as the guide and Ichabod just skimming around, getting used to things, that's really fun. Now that the series Ichabod's been part of the modern world for such a long time, there are fewer things to surprise him. It's a great shame that we had that time leap before the third season, because that's the time that Ichabod first went into an aeroplane. And I would have loved to have seen that. In fact, that's Alex Kurtzman, one of the producers, and I had spoken about that before, what it would be like, Ichabod in a plane. And he said he'd probably think going along the runway it was just a really fast bus. Yeah. And then suddenly it takes off and he freaks out and Jenny will have to knock him out. Yeah.
That's an idea, DVD extra.
DVD extra, there you go. We could have, maybe season 4 will be a flashback to that missing time. It won't be.
When you talk a bit about your look, so you said that you cut your hair because you didn't know if the show would be coming back. And did you hear anything from the higher-ups about, because there's always this big thing with Ichabod and his hair and like what his hair needs to look like.
Oh, yeah.
Did you get a stern talking to?
No, they haven't seen it yet. That's why I'm wearing a hat. Yeah, I finished and I got a haircut, and God, I hope it grows back before July.
So you might have to go back into a wig then.
God. Possibly. Or there could be another time leap and another haircut. And another mode of transport.
Mm-hmm.
For season 4, is there a particular route you want your character to go down?
Well, I know that it seems to have been set up that Ichabod will go and join this new organisation set up by Washington. I'd really like, particularly if it does take Ichabod to Washington, we are in entering into one of the weirdest times in modern American history. To have Donald Trump running for president. That's weird. That's just weird. And I think if we are going to be shooting in Washington, we shouldn't hide from the fact that there has to be some dark underground force that is making this surreal turn of events happen.
Guest star from Donald Trump.
Guest star from Trump. That'd be perfect. From President Trump.
You'll be the monster of the week.
Sorry?
You'll be the monster of the week.
He'll be the monster of 4 years, I think.
Yeah. It's got way dark.
I'm so sorry. You mentioned Trump and instantly the mood of the room changes.
Back to the Future too.
It's so funny because he does kind of look like Biff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In his tower.
In his big tower.
I thought the character was written inspired from Trump. I thought
Is
I
that
read
true?
That somewhere.
That is wonderful.
There you go.
And now it's life imitating art. That's amazing.
Horrifying. So have they told you anything?
Have I killed it? Have I killed it by mentioning Trump?
We'll talk more about wardrobe. Did they tell you anything about what you're meant to be wearing this time? Because it's like, how long is he going to hold on to the clothes?
I hope that the clothes don't change. I think it's nice to have. It's kind of. I've always thought of it as a security blanket for him. It's the last thing, especially now everyone he has ever known is dead. It's the one thing he has from home.
The moment when he wanted to change an episode.
There was that moment, and he didn't like it. Luckily, so I won't wear skinny jeans. Luckily. Yeah, and Len Wiseman actually always said that we can have variations on it, much like superheroes have variations on their theme. But no, Len always wanted an iconic look where you can see a silhouette of it and you'll recognise it as Ichabod Crane. So I'm hoping I'm not in a hoodie
Skinny
and jeans.
jeans.
Skinny jeans. Yeah.
After all this time, about 3 years now, what would you advise him?
What did I advise him?
Yeah, if you
Chill
would
out.
advise him.
Chill out. It gets very it's hard for me to be frowning for such a long time. And go on holiday. I'd like to. He should go on holiday to somewhere like the Maldives, and we'll go and film there for a couple of
In the
months.
same costume.
Oh shit! Yeah, you're right.
Saying.
It's true.
Try skinny jeans or tight shorts.
Tight shorts, little speedos.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.